Link. All right, it's now live now. How do I get the link?
Wow.
Hey, everyone.
How's it going?
Which is no one, but hey, everyone. We are live on air. If I can just figure out. Oh, here we go. Links. Okay, I'm sending you the link.
Yep.
I sent you the link on Facebook Messenger.
Yep. So now I'll just copy and paste this on here. So what? Let's hang on. Bloody hell. Technology, man.
Okay, we have 6 viewers. Hello, everyone who is just joining us. I'm live with Waleed of Veedu Vidz. We're just getting set up. Just give us a moment, and we'll be right at it.
Absolutely. Hi guys. Where? Do you know where they're coming from?
No, all over the world, I guess.
Of course, all of our millions of fans across the world. This is the highlight of their week. This is what they've been waiting for. So we've had some technical issues here, so you're just gonna have to bear with us. But okay, I'm gonna post this link on my Facebook.
Yeah, please do.
If I can manage. Okay. So, tell me, what's the weather like over there? It's absolutely boiling in the UK, man. I'm sweating.
Yeah, it's nice where I'm located, and went to the beach yesterday. It was not too hot at all. It was actually beautiful. Really enjoyed it. It was beautiful.
Yeah, I was playing cricket yesterday, and I feel kind of burnt.
Oh, nice.
It was really hot. So
we're gonna have a conversation today about free thought, atheism, belief, all that interesting stuff. And let me see, where's the chat? I'm sure people are gonna start sending messages as well. So we'll try to see. Okay. I don't know if anyone can actually leave messages or not, but if you can, do say hi. And we'll try to check in on the messages. Oh yeah, okay, I can see the messages now. Okay, there we go. Hey, hi, ex-Muslim atheist from UK, Dark Matter, and Vegan Willie says click it. Wow. So we'll check in on the messages. We'll check in on the message. I'll send you the link. That's the link that has a chat on there, on the side. So we'll check in on there once in a while. We're just gonna. Okay, so let's get started. You ready, Waleed?
Let's go for it, man.
Okay, so do you want to introduce yourself first? Because
yeah, sure.
Yeah, let's do it.
So my name is Veedu Vidz, or rather I should say Waleed, aka Veedu Vidz. I've got a YouTube channel, Veedu Vidz. I make comedy sketches about satire, Islam, politics, just all the interesting stuff, all the controversial stuff, because no one's got time to be boring. So I just make YouTube videos. I think the first video that really sort of launched me, or sort of gave me the most exposure, was the Zakir Naik impression.
Oh.
And that was the old nursery rhymes, our nursery rhymes halal and blah, 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 blah. But to be honest with you, I did that video and I didn't know what the reception would be. I didn't even know people would find it funny. I didn't know people would even get it. But, I did it, and well, I can say the rest is history.
Awesome. So yeah, we've known each other for 1 year. So everyone that doesn't know me, I'm Abdullah Samir. I live in Canada. I'm an ex-Muslim. I was Muslim for about 15 years, and then, well, you could say I was, if you include Ismailism, I was Muslim my whole life. But I converted to Sunni mainstream Islam at the age of around 18, and then I eventually ended up leaving Islam about 2 years ago. So it's been 2 years now, and we got in touch, me and Waleed. I found him on a group on Facebook that we're both following, which is called Agnostic Muslims and Friends, and to Hassan Radwan, who is someone we both look up to and we follow. So that's how we became friends. So we know each other for 1 year. We decided, let's have a conversation about some interesting topics here, and yeah, that's it. That's how it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that Facebook group, the Agnostic Muslims one, it brought a lot of people together who maybe wouldn't have otherwise spoken or known each other about. So I think I, like you said, came across yourself, and I watched some of your videos, follow you on Facebook, and I thought this guy's pretty cool. He's pretty interesting, you know. And I think there needs to be a conversation had for those like-minded people who are sort of exploring this new territory, whether it's atheism, ex-Muslim, or agnostic Muslim. What does that even mean? So yeah, so thank you for, you know, facilitating this and get the show on the road.
Let's talk about what does that mean, agnostic Muslim. So some people, actually many people have a hard time with that label, that expression, agnostic Muslim. They're like, how can you be Muslim and agnostic at the same time? And part of it as well is a confusion, I think, between what is atheist, what is agnostic. A lot of people think that agnostic is like a baby atheist. It's like, yeah, you don't have the balls to be atheist, you're an agnostic. But it's not like that, right? It's actually, agnostic has to do with Gnosticism, which is knowing. And, you know, like atheism has to do with belief in God or no belief in God. So anyone can be an agnostic. You can be an agnostic atheist, which means you don't believe that God exists, but at the same time, you claim that, you know, I don't know, right? So I'm agnostic atheist. Someone, you can't be a Gnostic atheist, because atheism is a negative claim. You're saying there is no God. So you can't say I know there's no God for sure. You can be like confident up to, let's say, 99%, but you can't say like I'm 100% sure there's no God, depending on what you mean by God. So that's the other thing.
I think that's also a very key question, because we attach so many different things to God. When I think of God, is it a creator, someone who just creates something, or is it also a personality attached with that creator? He wants you to pray, he wants you to do certain things, he doesn't want you to do certain things, he's got a plan for you to, after you die, blah blah blah. So even the word God is so loaded. You can literally unpack that for a good 2-3 hours. But I mean, yeah, agnostic Muslim, for me, when I first heard that, that simply means, yeah, I'm born into a Muslim family, or I am Muslim, but I have some questions that are unanswered, or get certain things about my tradition, and the people out there right now haven't got a good enough answer for me to be 100% sure, basically.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So agnostic Muslim, I would say, is someone that wants to maintain some of the connection to the, let's say, the culture, the heritage. They don't want to just throw everything with the bathwater. You know, there's some good things in the Islamic culture and the Muslim culture that, you know, they're not necessarily from Islam, but they're part and parcel of who we are now. And there's no reason to throw them out, right? There's absolutely no reason. So a lot of people in agnostic Muslims group, they still believe in God, although it seems like the majority are atheists. By the way, if you guys want to check out that group, it's a closed group, so there's some questions you need to answer in order to get in. It's definitely not an Islam bashing group. It's quite unique. To get in, you need to kind of explain why you want to be there. We try to have good conversations and discussions on topics of faith without being, you know, like Islam sucks, you know, you guys are all terrorists, stuff like that. You know, so
I just thought I'd throw that in there. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's different from that. Yeah, so so let's get into the questions. So you want to go first? Kind of question, right?
Yeah, so I've got a question for you, and I think we can start off the conversation on this point. Is what would you say? I mean, you mentioned earlier that you first Ismaili, you were in the Ismaili family, then you converted to mainstream Sunni Islam, and then you left. But what would you say what was the turning point for when you left Islam? I'm sure, I'm guessing it was a process, but there must have been something that just said, you know what, after this moment, I can't view Islam the same way.
Right.
What was that moment for you?
So what happened was, so I told you I left Islam 2 years ago. If you go back to 3 years ago, so 1 year before that, I had something come up in my mind that was troubling me with the Quran. Something wasn't adding up. Something was, you know, not clicking in, and it had to do with the story of Dhul Qarnayn. And for some reason, this was bugging me, because when you read the story, it's a very fantastical story of people that go, of this man, Dhul Qarnayn, that goes from east to west. And, you know, he meets the people that need help, and they're like, you know, Gog and Magog, Yajuj and Majuj, these two tribes, they're, you know, doing a terrible injustice to us, and they're hurting us, and they're killing us, and we need your help, and we need your help because you're rich, powerful king, and help us to make this big wall, right? And the guy said, okay.
That sounds very familiar. Sorry, I just got to say.
He said, I'm gonna help you. Just give me, you bring your manpower, and I'll bring my resources, and we'll do it. And they made this gigantic wall or gate, the gate of Dhul Qarnayn, between two mountains, and they sealed in these people. Okay, so knowing kind of like the way the globe is and the way the world is, you it kind of boggles your mind, like this gigantic gate that this king created to trap these creatures or these humans or whatever they are. Like, where is it, right? Like, it's like I could have, and we haven't seen it anywhere, and it's not like a small thing. Like these guys are like trapped there until the day of judgment. It's like they can never get out, right? And it's like some supernatural.
Are they alive still?
I'm sorry?
Are they alive?
Yeah, exactly. They're alive, and they're scratching their way. According to the hadith adds a few more details that they're like scratching their way out, and they're scratching with the nails or something. One day, according to the hadith, Prophet Muhammad woke up in a fear, and he's like, woe to the Arabs, woe to the Arabs. And they're like, what happened? Like, tell us, like, did you see something? He's like, Yajuj and Majuj is scratching, and they're gonna get out. And when they get out, you guys are in big trouble. So you better follow Islam and obey the messenger. Okay, so yeah, that I added the part about obey the messenger.
Like that.
Yeah, pretty much like, you guys better watch out, because I'm the only guy that can help you guys to protect you guys from these creatures / humans that's coming, whatever they are. And the Quran mentions as well, so it's not only in the hadith. Whoever's immediately jumping up and down and saying, only in the hadith. No, it's in the Quran as well, that Yajuj and Majuj are going to come and swarm from every corner. And of course, the hadith just kind of fills in the details as to, the actual nature of this. In the hadith, it's like extremely explicit. And I was a Sunni Muslim, so I followed the hadith as well. The hadith says there'll be like 999 of them dead for every one like non-Yajuj Majuj, like let's say normal human. So they're gonna like drink up the whole Indus River, one of the rivers. They're gonna be like the whole earth is gonna be covered with the rotting corpses of them when finally when Isa, Jesus comes back, and they all die. And so it's like, this is not a small tribe, right? And the Masked Arab kind of explored some of these topics in a video. He said that if the population of the earth is like 6 billion, are we talking like 100 billion of these guys? Or I mean, there's some kind of troubling things. But anyways, I didn't get into all that. It was just a simple question: where's this gate? And I was having some doubt about this and some of the other things in the Quran. Sorry, I went on and on. I got caught on a tangent. Anyways, so long story short, I had some trouble with this. But I sat down with my wife. She said, let's talk to some of your knowledgeable friends. Talked to them, looked into a bit more, and I watched this one video by this Egyptian guy that kind of came up with some kind of, maybe they're in the earth, maybe they're in a cave, maybe this, maybe that. And I'm like, okay, whatever. You know what? I'm going to be Muslim. Islam's cool. I don't want to go to hell. I'm just going to follow it. And so I just blocked it from my mind completely for 1 full year. And I continued being Muslim for an entire year, praying, doing the whole thing, like completely 100% at the office, doing the prayers, telling people, you should pray with me, come on guys, God is going to be mad with us if we don't do this. And then finally, after the 1 year, it came back to Ramadan. So interesting thing is, in Ramadan's when, I get the most exposure to the Quran. I'm reading the Quran, I'm going to lectures more, I'm actually exposed to this. So the second time this happened was in Ramadan again, in the middle of Ramadan. So I'd fasted half of Ramadan. And this sheikh in this masjid was saying, the Quran, these so-called atheists and these scientists, they think they're so smart. They say the Quran's wrong because it says Allah holds up the sky without any pillars. And it just all came flooding back to me that, oh my God, all my doubts that I had about how the Quran is speaking it's not speaking in a way that you would think God would speak. It's speaking in a way that a man in the 7th century would have spoken, that, is holding up the sky. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, hold up the sky.
Almost like the Greek god, the Greek gods, when they hold up the earth or whatever it is. That guy, I can't remember his name, whatever, but yeah. Sure.
Exactly. And so, these things kind of troubled me. Like, the more I looked into it, the more I was like, dang, like, why do I believe in this? Like, what these? So it didn't start that way. In the beginning, it was all like, oh, I have these doubts about the Quran. Let's discuss these doubts with someone. And so I went to talk to people, and it's like, let's talk about this. And I asked my friend about the whole Dhul Qarnayn thing. There's a beautiful piece online. Before the Masked Arab made his video, There's a beautiful piece online called Quran. It's on Quran Spotlight. So if you just Google Quran Spotlight Dhul Qarnayn, it's a long piece where he goes into like point by point connecting the whole Dhul Qarnayn thing with the fact that, you know, there's Alexander the Great, and it just matches the story 100%, which was like a kind of popular myth. So this is kind of how it started with me. And so like, what do you think? Like, how do you look at the Quran?
I've got a few questions about that, because that sounds quite interesting. Did you, when you were sort of Orthodox and you Muslim, did you believe in miracles?
Yeah, very much so. So this is my perspective.
Sorry?
So this was my perspective. My perspective was, we look at the Quran. The Quran claims that it's the infallible divine truth from God. Is it the divine infallible truth from God? If it is, then we have to accept it no matter what it says. Once we've ascertained, and you know, how do you ascertain that is a different question, but let's say you're convinced that Quran is an absolute word of God. How do we treat it now? If it says ants talked, ants talked. If it said Moses split the sea and there was a big ocean in between and they walked between it, and then Pharaoh came and he got drowned and all that stuff and whatever, I accepted all of that. I accepted every single claim in the Quran, you know, because God is the one that made the
So if you accepted all these fantastical claims, why did you all of a sudden say,
Great question. That's
what I'm trying to understand.
Okay, that's an amazing question. So all of the claims in the Quran, some of them we can't confirm, right? But some we can. So the claim about the gate of Dhul Qarnayn, it's a claim that continues to the Day of Judgment, and so there should be evidence of it, right? So the Quran is, in my opinion, it's a falsifiable document. It itself says, if it's not from God, you know, try to find an error, try to find a contradiction. There'll be much, you know, and that's exactly what I used to believe. There's no contradiction in it. But when it came to testable claims, that's when I started to have doubt, because the first testable claim is, where's this gate of Dhul Qarnayn? Now, some people, the most funny example I've ever heard now is it's under the ocean. So, I mean, some people are so desperate to hold on to this. So there's a knowledgeable sister, a friend of one of my, a wife of one of my knowledgeable Muslim friends, and I was like, where's this gate? And she posted on my Facebook, yeah, it might be in the bottom of the ocean. So are these guys like, it's like when the, you know, so what's the way I look at the world is, what is the most, you know, simplest, most kind of clearest possible understanding? Is it that, you know, Muhammad came with this book, but he just happened to speak in a way that someone in the 7th century would speak. He just happened to not, you know, fix any of the misunderstandings they had. He just happened to include all of these stories that were kind of like, you know, circulating around. And on top of it, we found evidence for these stories. Like Dhul Qarnayn, the Dhul Qarnayn story, it matches the Syriac Alexander romance to a T. It's shocking just how closely it matches. It talks about Alexander the Great going to the east and the west, and they used to believe in a flat earth that was surrounded by water. And in this water, anyone that goes in the water would die, because it was like a black fetid sea. And in the Quran, it actually kind of hints that he talks about the same thing. It talks about the, you know, where the sun is rising, there's no shade for those people. They used to think the sun would like literally rise like right outside someone's house at the edge of the earth. It's like, oh. And the funny thing is, even in that Syriac Alexander romance, it says that people over there are like dark skinned, which is, again, it's so funny, like how they used to think, like they thought like the sun would make people black or something. It's just hilarious. It's
amazing.
It's so funny. Like,
sorry, go on. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
So, I mean, did you ask any sheikhs or any imams in your mosque, like, you know, this Majud, Gog and Magog? It's a bit of a tongue twister. Gog and Magog, you say, you know, these gates where, you know, now we've got Google Earth. Surely you can just type in a few coordinates and you find the gates of Zulkarnain, right? I mean, what's the big deal?
Yeah, so I didn't actually.
Imams.
Yeah, I went to talk to people I trusted, who were knowledgeable friends, and they actually kind of sent me that video of that guy. You can find that video. It's, you know, I think I just wanted to believe, so I kind of accepted any half-baked explanation. One of the explanations in that video, which now I laugh at, is hollow earth. It's like the earth is hollow. And I had another friend when I met him, excuse me, and he told me the same thing. He's like, yeah, but how do you know the earth is not hollow? I'm like, we know the earth is not hollow. We tried to dig in it and we couldn't get like more than 1 kilometer down because all of the instruments broke because the thing is so freaking solid.
Yeah.
And it's so hot down there that the thing melts. Like, so it's like, come on, like this is just like desperate thinking, right? So Occam's razor, as it's called, you know, it's a very useful tool in life. Instead of coming up with all of these convoluted explanations for like, you know, like when it comes to conspiracy thinking, this is what happens. Instead of just taking the most obvious explanation that, yeah, like the earth is round.
We don't do simple explanations, mate. No. We are very creative people. You know, let's go for the most complicated, you know, magical explanation possible, right? So yeah, I completely agree. What about it's not true? No, it's true, but in a third, fifth dimension, under the sea, there's a cave, and if you go into that cave, there's the door, and there's the people, and they're actually there in a. Okay. Yeah. Okay, fair enough. I mean, that's Alex Jones sort of level, isn't it? I mean, if you want to...
Yeah, exactly. It's like there's child slaves on Mars and whatever. Like,
yeah. So wow, that's so fair enough. So that was your tipping point, the Gog and Magog.
Yeah. So that started it, and then I started my journey, and then eventually I kind of realized that what reason do I have to believe in this in the first place? And so I went from the perspective of having doubt in the Quran, which is what everybody thinks. Like they come to you and they say, if I clear up all your doubts in the Quran, will you believe? But it's much bigger than that. It's not just doubts, because doubts presuppose that it's true, and then there's doubts. But like
that's a very good point you just made there, because you can't assume that it's true and then try and prove it to be right.
Exactly.
You're starting from the wrong position in the first place.
Yeah, we have to be skeptical, right? Because when someone comes and says, I spoke to God, okay, well, that's kind of a strange proposition. Why should we believe you? And the question is, why would God even set up the world in such a way that makes it so difficult to verify this claim? Like it's, you know what I mean? Like if you really wanted, I mean, it'd be so easy to send the same book in 5 different places and be like, okay, well,
at the same time, with the same exact sort of meaning, to the same. That's a brilliant question, but they all seem to be in this focus in the Middle East with like 500 years in between, and they all have some sort of conflicting theology, you know, different points.
Yeah,
and whatever.
Yeah, they kind of build on each other. They all have, you know, when we dig into it, we find sources for these stories, like the gate. You know, the gate that everyone has to go over this big gate. Sorry, not gate. This bridge, in order to get to paradise. All believers have to go, and you know, Prophet Muhammad said, oh, some people will just zip across it like lightning, and some people will be like, you know, crawling, and a lot of people will fall into hell, right? This exact concept is in Zoroastrianism. It's called the Chivanat Bridge. So when I read it, I was like, whoa, yeah, Chivanat Bridge is in Zoroastrianism.
Wow.
So it's like, and then you find things in the Quran where it talks about the Sabians. And I was like, as a Muslim, I'm like, who the hell are these Sabians? Like, I don't see any Sabians around here. You guys see any Sabians? I know it was Christians, Jews.
Of course.
Who's Sabians? Like, what is it?
That's something I never understood. Who is a Sabian? I don't understand. What is a Sabian?
Yeah, so now what I'm seeing is the Sabians, it was a sect, a religion that existed in Arabia. They were monotheist, that Prophet Muhammad, maybe he borrowed some of their practices and he built upon them. So he wanted to include them in his concept of like believers or saved believers, right? Whoever is Christian and Jewish or Sabian and they believe and they'll go to heaven. It's like, you know, it's like, okay, but Allah decided to include this Sabian thing that nobody now knows who it is. Like, again, what do we see? Like, again, we're seeing local, you know, things, you know, being falling in the. One of my friends in a mutual group, he mentioned, how come the Bible doesn't, I'm sorry, the Bible, how come the Quran doesn't mention anything about the Pope? I mean, that was a huge part of Christianity back then.
That's a very good point.
That was the most established, I mean, that's the biggest church in the world, the Catholic Church. How come the Quran doesn't mention the Pope? It only mentions like these like kind of, you know, these local kind of, you know, things they used to believe about Jesus, and like, it doesn't go into like things that he wouldn't have. That's again, like a big point, right? So do you see it the same way? Like the Quran, like how do you see the Quran?
Well, I think you've mentioned it before that a lot of the stories, whether it's in the Quran or the Hadiths, are borrowed from other places. So, for example, you mentioned something about Alexandria or Zoroastrianism, and I think that's the equivalent for the Middle East. The Quran is the sort of the sort of culmination of the different mythologies and stories for that time in the Middle East. And there's nothing wrong with that per se. There's nothing wrong with that, having this collection of stories or books. It's another claim to say this is the literal word of God and it's perfect, and you have to live your life according to it. Now we read, in even now, like Homer or Plato or Gilgamesh or whoever, right? But we understand for what it is, and we know this fantastical claims and stories. And like in 1,000 years' time, someone might read Harry Potter and say, that's a really good story. He's got a lot of interesting different plots going on, different lessons you can learn. There's good, there's evil, there's the struggle. You can draw all the different analogies from them. But to say this is the ultimate wisdom or the ultimate truth, I think that's a very big claim for which I'm not convinced.
Mm-hmm. And do you want to talk about? Do you want to get into politics yet? Or do you want to continue on this?
I'm happy to go either way.
So, what do you think about? You're in London, England. What do you think about the rise of, there's a lot of racism, a lot of bigotry that seems to be coming out on both sides. There's a lot of anti-Muslim bigotry as well that seems to be coming up. And then, a lot of the times it's overblown and people, they have this victim mentality where they feel like Islam is like under attack and Muslims are like...
Yeah, just on that point, listen, anywhere you go in the world, you have people who are idiots and who will discriminate, whether it's based on religion or ethnicity or whatever you want to call it. That's a given. But where would you rather be a Muslim? Okay, let me rephrase the question. Where would you rather be, a religious or an ethnic minority? Somewhere in the UK or US, Canada, Australia, France, or somewhere like, I don't know, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Malaysia. I'll let you think about that before you answer, right? I know where I would rather be a minority.
Yeah.
And I think the answer is obvious. Now, having said that, yes, no society is perfect, but there are kind of grades. And I think where, Canada, US, UK, whatever, they're sort of, doing a lot better with their minorities than other countries are. But going on to your point about this, what's happening in the UK, I think, you know what, man, I'm not a fan of political correctness.
Yeah.
Because that's not to say that you should be rude to someone just for the sake of it. It's not about being rude or swearing to someone's face. It's about telling people the truth. If the truth hurts you, your feelings are less important than the truth. That's what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Right? If I have to say, Abdullah, man, you've got a massive on your nose, you might get upset. Right? You say, oh, how dare you, man? That's really rude. But I might actually save you some more embarrassment if I tell you, you got something on your nose, you need to clean it off. And then you clean it, and then actually, you know what? You're back to your beautiful self. But if I sort of out of this, oh no, you know what? That community, we can't talk about them because they might get upset. They might be very sensitive. What actually happens is you actually hurt that community in the long run.
Yeah.
Because those problems fester. Don't get any better. They get worse. And then it comes to a blowing point, and that's how you get the rise of groups like EDL or Britain First, who, as much as you might want to disagree with their tactics, but the fact is they're the most brazen or bold enough people to talk about it. So actually what you're doing is you're only letting those people talk about it who actually don't care about your feelings, who don't care about how they come across. So if you were to open up the discussion a lot earlier, then the more moderate, whatever that means, the more moderate people will actually take control of the conversation rather than leave it to those people on the fringes. And then you get this thing which is called reciprocal radicalization. So let's say, for example, have you heard of Anjem Chaudhry?
Yeah. Yep.
So he's in prison now. But before, when he wasn't, and he had his group, you had him obviously spewing some of the most complete nonsense coming out of his mouth, right? Him and his group would, oh, Sharia for UK, coffin, this, that, whatever. And as a result of that, on the other end, people being radicalized by them.
Oh.
So because the vast majority of people just maybe out of politeness or say, you know what, I don't like him, but I'm not going to say anything. But those guys who aren't that polite and they'll start speaking, and they'll start taking control of the conversation. You have EDL, BNP, and the far right. So actually, if you don't take care of on the other end, you actually are giving fuel to those guys as well. And that's what happens, that these groups keep trying to one up each other, and that's what happens. So now you have a problem with not only the Muslim right, but also the non-Muslim right, because if you don't talk about it in the beginning, then you leave it to those people who don't care about mainstream values or whatever it is, and they're a bit more aggressive in their conversation methods.
Those groups not just they don't care about hurting people in the process, and they don't care about grouping unrelated people into that same group, which is why I think some of these groups are bigoted, because what they're doing is so here's a challenge, and this is something I found personally challenging as well, especially when I made my video on jihad, because I can clearly see, I was a Muslim and I was a religious Muslim. I can clearly see there's a problem in the Muslim community with jihadism. There's a concept of jihad in Islam, which is, superior, and it's the best thing in the world. And, if you die as a martyr, you'll get, you'll be in a little bird in Jannah, in paradise right away. And it's praise and it's given the highest, you can't deny it. Even mainstream Sunni scholars like Taqi Usmani, he will say that jihad is the pinnacle of Islam, right? Like, you can't deny this. And then at the same time, I don't want to say that like all my Muslims in my family, they want to go and like fight jihad or something. Yeah. They don't. They couldn't care less about jihad, right? It's just something in the Quran or whatever. They're like living their lives, and this is actually challenging for many people, and it was challenging for me, because how do I say that not every Muslim accepts this and believes in this, and they're not about to go and join ISIS or something? Yet at the same time, I want to say there's a problem in the text, and if you follow the text, it will lead to this, right? This is a challenge, right? So eventually, what I ended up doing is I made it clear that what we call mainstream Sunni Islam, the majority of scholars, they reject, let's call it jihadism, which is like individuals or like kind of small groups doing jihad. For the longest time, jihad was considered something that only the Amir, the state, the Khalifa, the ruler could kind of do. So that's how mainstream Sunni scholars see it, and that's how most Sunnis see it. The problem is, this is a problem with religion in general. Like, who's right and who's wrong?
Oh boy, you just opened up a can of worms. You just opened up a can of worms.
Yeah, like, how do you say who's right and who's wrong? Why is it that those guys, their interpretation of jihad is correct and not the terrorists, right? Not ISIS. So ISIS, they're doing pretty much everything that Prophet Muhammad did. This is a problem, right? And this is a challenge. So someone needs to say the Islamic texts contain a whole lot of troubling things. The Quran itself is extremely antagonistic towards disbelievers. So, when Muslims get mad, this is a problem, like you said. The Muslim community doesn't want to let people criticize it. Doesn't want to let people criticize Islam, because they start shouting Islamophobia, Islamophobia, Islamophobia. And so, like you said, everyone is shut down. Like reasonable people who are not bigots, who want to say that normal Muslims are fine. Like, we don't have to go and like put all Muslims in camps or put them in jail or all that nonsense. We don't want to get to that. We don't want to become a fascist country. We don't want to start making thought illegal, like thought crimes, like, oh no, you can't be a Muslim or you'll go to jail. I mean, I know someone like that wants to put people in jail because they're Muslim. I mean, this is freaking insane. Like, are you crazy? Like, just because they call themselves Muslim? Like, is there only one thing called Muslim?
Yeah, absolutely. It's madness.
And that's a question for you. That's a question for you. What is Muslim? Like, is there only one thing called Muslim? Like,
brother, it's very simple.
One way to understand Islam? Like,
brother, it's very simple. You have to follow the Quran and Sunnah. Okay? You come to my local mosque, I'll give you some biryani. We'll have a nice chat. You say the shahada, and that's it. Bismillah. That's all you have to do. But I mean, exactly. I mean, I was speaking to a friend, and he is of the sort of Sufi persuasion, whatever. And me and him have a bit of a sort of, have a dig at Salafis. Oh, these guys are so like literalist and hardcore and blah blah blah. But then he said that if you don't accept that the Prophet is alive and that he can benefit people, then you're out of Sunnism. So I'm like, hang on, you're doing takfiri on the takfiris because they don't.
Takfiri means to kick someone out of Islam.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. So you're basically casting the people out who are known for casting people out of Islam, right? So yeah. I mean, this is the sort of absurdity that we've come to.
And that's the thing. You made another good point. So here's a problem with Islam. Just to throw it out there, because once you leave Islam, you are now an inferior, human being. You are now an apostate. You are now liable for death according to pretty much the hadith. And even if you're not liable for death according to the hadith as an apostate because you did something that someone decided was not Islamic enough, and this is what ISIS does, right? This is what Al Qaeda does. They make takfir. They turn everyone into a disbeliever, and then they consider like. So here's an interesting thing about
actually what they did was that ISIS was an extreme wing of Al Qaeda, and ISIS said these guys aren't extreme enough, as in they're not the real Muslims enough. So that they actually had fight ISIS versus Al Qaeda, saying you guys, you've read it wrong. We obviously understand it properly. You guys aren't extreme enough. So they actually started to kill each other. That is the sort of logical or absurd conclusion you come to when you take these things to their logical conclusion. So you ask me who's a Muslim. Honestly, so again, this comes down to the thing my friend was saying. The reason why the Sufis have the sort of right version of Islam is because they have a chain of narration. They have a sheikh who goes back to their sheikh who was taught by someone who was taught by someone who was taught by someone. They have a chain going back all the way to the Prophet, right? Great, amazing. So I said, do you think that when people convert to Islam, do you think that they convert to Islam with this chain? I mean, what's even the percentage of people of Islam who come to Islam who are born Muslims go through this chain? So probably not even 5-10%. So are you saying all these Muslims who live and breathe Islam all their life, they haven't come across this chain? Therefore, what are they not?
So there's kind of two big groups, right? There's the Salafis who don't really have this concept, or they don't emphasize this concept of this this silsila, this chain, and then there's they call themselves the traditional Muslims or whatever, the ones that follow madhabs, right? So scholars of those, and that's what it comes down to, right? It's an appeal to authority. There's a fascinating book which I listened to on Audible. It's an amazing book. It's called The Way of Strangers by Graham Wood. He's a journalist. He traveled to talk to jihadis and recruiters. He met a bunch of ISIS recruiters, and he managed to even figure out the identity of one of them, one of the top guys. So yeah, it's an amazing book, and he goes into great detail as to what you were just saying about how Al Qaeda and ISIS split, and how they make these claims that you're not religious enough, and how many Muslims will say, oh, but they're not even Muslim. ISIS is not even Muslim. They're just.
This is what I don't understand. How can you say that? I don't get that unless you can look into their heart, unless you've spoken to them individually. It's shh, tell me, are you really Muslim? No, you can't do that, right? Just say, people don't like it when when the extremists say to the moderates, you guys aren't Muslim because you've been westernized, because you've been you don't pray, you don't like it when they do it, but your response is they're not Muslim.
And he even mentions this thing about, what do you call it, how one of them was traveling to Syria, had this Islam for Dummies book. He mentions this in the book because a lot of people mention this and they say, oh look, he has a book called Islam for Dummies, so he doesn't know anything about Islam. But
I guess he's learning on the job.
Yeah, and that's the thing. First of all, that's a sign that he cares about Islam. Second of all, we don't know what the book was for. He may have been giving it to someone over there, right? Like a new convert. They're always trying to convert people, and of course, there's people coming to Syria all the time that get caught up in this that may not necessarily understand Islam in great detail. So they have that book. I mean, we don't know, right? I mean, and plus,
it could be anything. It could be anything.
How do you judge someone's sincerity based on that? Like, you don't have to be knowledgeable in order to be sincere. You know what I'm saying? Like, the majority of Muslims are not scholars, right?
Yep.
The majority of Muslims, they're just common Muslims, but they're deeply sincere. They deeply believe, just like the majority of Catholics, let's say. They don't know all the technical details of the religion. If you ask them, they probably wouldn't be able to defend it, right?
Yeah. That's a good point. I mean, the vast majority of people who aren't trained in theology or religious studies, whatever, which is probably 99.99999%, because I mean, what's the percentage of sheikhs as a Muslim population? Probably not even a percent of a percent, right? They're tiny, right? So this is another thing. I mean, who do you take your Islam from? Is it from the sheikhs and the imams and their high pulpits who spend 50 years learning Arabic and read it the right way and have all the hadith translations? Or I actually think the most way people learn about Islam or convert to Islam is just through common people, right? I mean, who aren't sheikhs or who aren't imams and studying in Medina University for 20 years and have this many degrees and that many big turbans and whatnot. So when people start saying they're not Muslim, I'm like, so what makes you think you are? I don't understand. Where have you got this ijazah, this permission to say this person is a Muslim, this person is not a Muslim?
Yeah.
The best way to deal with it is say, listen, they're Muslims, but I disagree with what they're doing. Let's start the conversation by first acknowledging who they are. If they say they're Muslims, then on face value, we're going to have to take it for that. I have no other reason to believe they're not. Just because someone commits violent acts and you don't like that, that doesn't mean that you have the right to say, no, they're not Muslims anymore.
Exactly. Not just that. They use Islamic texts to defend what they're doing. They are just...
No, but hey, it's out of context, right? It's out of context. They've read the wrong translation.
Right? Translation.
Only they read the wrong translation. You know, instead of lashing someone, they would be giving them flowers. Okay? So please stop being so bigoted, Abdullah, man. Seriously, we started so well. Now you're come on.
And the other thing is, this guy was saying in the book that these guys, they're freaking they're able to respond to people on theological claims, he said, and this is kind of a failure of the Muslim community. Now, first of all, they will, ISIS will outright reject someone like Hamza Yusuf because he's Sufi, and they think Sufis are all misguided idiots. But someone let's say Yasir Qadhi, the Salafi community, they're the ones that can respond the best to ISIS because they're on almost equal terms already. Salafis are almost ISIS, pretty much. You can say that. They're
actually ISIS with teeth.
Yeah, ISIS is ultra Salafi, you could say. And I know.
Yeah, these guys, the Salafis, who all oh, you know what? Yeah, I'm in favor of stoning people. I'm in favor of cutting someone's hand or throwing someone off a cliff. They'll say it, right? But I don't know whether they're actually going to follow through with it.
Yeah.
Okay, you talk a big game. Now let's see you play. And they're like, oh, damn. Oh, is that what it looks like? Is that what it actually looks like? The stone someone. Then they actually see what they're saying. This is the actual result of you defending these nonsense rules. But when someone actually does it, then you see, oh, that's really ugly. That's not really nice. But at the same time, you can't say it's wrong because it's actually in your book. So where do you go?
Exactly. That's a problem, right? So many good people I know, and this is the thing, nobody is saying that Muslims are supposed to go killing homosexuals in the UK, in Canada. That is absolutely not what Islam teaches. I mean, there's no vigilantism. I mean, there has to be a judge. I mean, it's kind of disgusting that you'd have to have a judge, and you'd have to see whether the guy's really, committed a homosexual act and then kill him. I mean, that's disgusting.
I would love to see how they judge that. I would love to see.
It's supposed to be for witnesses of intercourse. So the funny thing is, back in the day, I mean, these rules, they made sense. Okay, I don't even want to say they made sense, but they made more sense in a culture, in a world where people had curtains for doors, and the wind would blow the curtain, and people would see them whatever, right? So that's the situation where you'd get 4 witnesses. And in today's world, we don't use curtains, and we have doors. We lock the door. How would you see? And the funny thing is, when you see Muslims defending this, it's no, but there has to be 4 witnesses. So does that make it better? Does that make so you're telling me, okay, when you tell them, but this is such a terrible law. Like you have to kill someone that commits adultery. You have to kill them. Well, you have to kill like a homosexual, for example, that does it. And they're like, no, no, no. It's just a way to stop people. It's just
deterrent.
Yeah, it's just a deterrent, right? It's a deterrent. It's a deterrent. You're like, yeah, okay, it's a deterrent, but then if you're saying it's a deterrent and you're also saying it needs 4 witnesses so it never happens, how is that a deterrent?
It's not a deterrent. It's not a deterrent. It's not a deterrent. So again, if you had 4 witnesses who saw the thing, that's not because you're actually doing it now. You're actually following through with the law.
Yeah.
So this whole thing is so. But hang on. So, but even if this is the thing, right? Oh, but are you for public sex? Are you saying? No, I don't think people who normally engage in sex, whatever sex, straight or otherwise, think, you know what? It's a really nice day outside. Let's go in the park. Yeah. Who the hell, honestly, other than, I don't understand. Like, you know what? No, I don't like this bed. It's too comfy. Let's go outside. So, you know what? This whole thing is so nonsensical. I mean, even, let's say for argument's sake, someone was doing outside in the middle of the road. Give them psychiatric help. I don't know. Buy them, a motel room or something. You don't kill someone. To kill someone, and that's it. End of their life. That's it. No more.
Yeah.
Extreme measure for something which, to be honest with you, yeah, it's distasteful. Yeah, it's bad. But I don't think the finality of the, that's it. Get rid of them from the face of the earth. I don't think that's the answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, I made a video on this too, and I totally agree. Like, killing someone for adultery is just about the most stupidest thing you could do, because a lot of people commit adultery. First of all, a lot of people grew up with shitty lives, right? They were abused themselves. They may have psychological issues, or they may just be shitty individuals that shouldn't be married. You should just leave them, but kill them, like you know what I mean?
Very extreme measure for something that actually doesn't do that much harm.
And the thing is, even in the case that people do commit adultery, a lot of times they go for for counseling, and they're able to identify, first of all, why they did it and how it won't happen again, and they have even like more loving lives, more loving relationships.
You know what? You've just raised a very good point about go for counseling, or that's something which is quite. I don't think Muslims get it. But this idea of counseling or seeking help psychologically, or because it's for them. The answers are in the Quran. You just got to read it again and again. Do more zikr, or do a dua, and that dua is or istikhara or whatever you want to call it. And if I pray to God, God help me with this problem that I have, or I'm I don't know, I've got a gambling problem, whatever. God's going to answer my prayers, and then I'm going to stop gambling.
Yeah, exactly.
Let me go to a psychologist or a psychotherapist, whatever you want to call it, and let me talk to them. Let me see what the root of this addiction is, or the root of the problem is. That I don't think is seen as a good or alternative way to solve people's problems. The way you solve it is go to a sheikh, do an exorcism, or do a dua, start fasting, and have patience. Have patience.
Yeah,
your prayer will be answered.
That's a good point. Some people do both. They'll do the prayer, and they'll also seek some sort of help or assistance from others, which is what Prophet Muhammad said. He said, I think he said that, like, tie your camel or something. So you have to actually do something about it. But the problem is, a lot of issues, like you said, they're masked as religious issues when they're actually not religious issues.
Not religious issues.
Like, for example, a very good example is, adultery or some sort of, infidelity. Not adultery. Let's just say infidelity.
Yeah.
For example, a lot of psychological issues. People think it has to do with jinns, and like you said, they believe they're possessed. And it just could be just a simple psychological issue the person has, right? Like, people saying gobbledygook, and like it's funny how when you go for these exorcisms, it's always someone from that culture that will act in the way that as if a jinn is possessing them. So you'll find, for example, a Somali, I was told this guy, he went for or this lady, she went for this exorcism, and she was screaming and this and that. And when the guy said, "Jinn, get out, jinn, get out," and it goes like, "Oh," like it's like oh, and then she's like, I hate Quran, I hate Quran, I hate Quran. Shut up, I hate Quran. Wow. I hate Quran. Like, it's like, what? Like, seriously? And then, I had one guy tell me I need to come back to Islam. because I need to see an exorcism. He's like, you gotta see an exorcism. It'll make you come back. And it's like this guy was speaking a different language.
That's a very strange way to convert someone to Islam. Brother, you need to see this jinn, man. I'm telling you. You gotta say this shahada.
Jinns, they're doing God's work, man.
This guy's amazing. It's amazing. That's
amazing. He converted 5 people already to Islam.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, I've got to respect that brother for his creativity there. That's a really good one.
So the thing is, when you go and you know, when you try to like dig into this, it's like, okay, this lady or whatever, this man was speaking a different language. Okay, did anyone record it? No. Did anyone confirm like what the guy was saying? Was it something like, could have been? And the funny thing is, you see the same exact thing among Protestants, but they don't call it jinns and they don't call it exorcism. They call it speaking in tongues. They have the same thing where the Holy Spirit comes and they start like, oh, blah, blah, blah. They start saying some things, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, that's their own spiritual experience. I mean, no doubt. I mean, I don't want to like put them down for that. They can do whatever they want. But to claim that there's some sort of like, you know, exterior confirmation or some sort of exterior power or whatever, I mean, obviously I don't buy that. I mean, they're just saying whatever comes in their mind. And you know, we can study these things using brain studies and there's science behind meditation. There's science behind all of these things, right? Like there's a reason why religion as well is so adaptive and why it's survived all these years. There is some benefit that it brings to people, right? Like, what do you think about that? Doesn't religion bring some sort of happiness to people?
Yeah, you know what? That's a good point. I'm not saying people should completely tear up the religious books or texts or whatever you want to call it. Listen, religion is a great tool for building a community or building a story or a narrative that you can learn from. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that's great. The problem comes when you have these weird or superstitious beliefs in them, and people have to accept them as a literal truth, or those beliefs are quite violent, or those beliefs are quite detrimental to a gender or the people that don't belong in that group, whatever you want to call it. That's where things go wrong. If it's just, like I said, just a means to understand the world or something, or, you know, like background music.
Yeah.
And that's fine. If it's background music, you know, it helps you out. It gives you a bit of direction. It gives you a bit of comfort. That's fine. Go for it. The problem is when you start saying these things are 100% true and you provide no evidence. That is the problem. That's what I'm trying to say. I mean, you can believe in any religion you want. That's fine. But the moment you say something is true, then the first question I'm going to ask is, have you got any evidence? If you say no, and you're insistent upon that it's true, then we start getting into dogma. And then, you know, even if it's a non-violent belief, like, let's say, for example, I don't believe in evolution. Now, that's not a violent belief to have. If I don't believe in it, I'm not going to kill you. I just say, I don't believe in evolution. Now you say, okay, yeah, that's fine. You can believe that, you know. But what about, that's a non-violent, but what about jihadism? What about when you get into, how do you treat non-Muslims? What about FGM? When you start getting into those discussions, then you realize that type of thinking is very dangerous.
Yeah.
So that's what I would stay well clear of.
And I think, you know, my perspective on dealing with these things is not to censor them. I'm all for free speech. I believe it's better that people actually talk about what they think openly, and if it's jihadism or whatever it is, it's better we know. Yeah, it's better we know who's saying this, and it's better we just respond to them. Like you said, which country would you want to live in as a minority? Would you want to live in the Middle East, or would you want to live in the West, right? The so-called West? There's a reason why it's like life is good here. I mean, there's a reason for that. And it's no surprise that democracy is a big part of it. Democracy, liberal democracy, you know, freedom of speech and freedom of religion. There's a reason why Anjem Chaudhry can go and, you know, yap his big mouth about these things in the West, and he wouldn't be able to in the East. And I mean, it's a challenge because it's something, sometimes it gets into the point of being dangerous. And obviously when it gets to threatening an individual, yes, that person needs to be shut down. You know, threatening a group, like if someone says, you know, we should go kill all the Muslims, like that guy, that's wrong. Yeah. You should go to jail. Like, you should just go to jail for that. Like, that's not, I don't protect that under free speech. If you're saying somebody should be killed, if you're threatening or making, you know, like, that's, you know, and it's not black and white. Like, that's the thing. Sometimes people will say things that it's like, did he mean that? Like, and then you have to kind of, there needs to be some sort of case made. And that's why I think we have these, like, human rights tribunals, like in Canada. We have these things where people can say, like, you know, I was discriminated for this reason. And I truly believe that's why the West is morally superior than Muslim countries and Islamic law for sure. The West is morally superior. You know, we treat women better. We
But bro, zakat. What was zakat, man?
Zakat?
I'm joking. I'm joking.
Yeah, the zakat is cool. I mean, it's a cool thing.
Zakat is basically tax because you don't have a choice.
Yeah, well, it's 2.5% on it's a holding tax.
Sorry?
It's a holding tax. So it's 2.5% of whatever you hold for more than 1 year above the nisab, so above the minimum amount. So it's not a bad thing. You know, one thing I wanted to make a video of, and I hope to do it at some point, is 1% for the world. I was listening to this book on ethics, and the guy was saying that if everybody gave 1% of the wealth, and 1% should be like a minimum, like everybody should give 1% of whatever you make to charity. If we all do that, like we will change the world. Like we will completely change the world. And this is where, you know, if there's something good in religion, I have no problem to take that good thing and use it for myself. Because like you said, it's like I'm not ascribing any sort of godly attribute to it. I'm just saying these are good things that we can take from different cultures and religions, and let's take the best of all of them and make that secular morality. And there's no sin to say that we took this from religion, even though, I mean, honestly, it's not true to say the golden rule came from religion. It's not true to say that, you know, all of these good values came from religion. It's not true. These things existed. Humans have had these values for a long time. Religions kind of, you know, codified them and made them explicit. But then along with those good things, they also put bad things in them as well. Like in the Bible, you know, it justifies slavery. There's things like if a child curses the parents, they should be killed, like some crazy stuff, right? So the crazy stuff got stuck with the good stuff, and it's all together. And then we humans, you know, we're able to see it, and we say, okay, I'm going to take the good parts, which is what you should do. And isn't that what like a moderate Muslim is? Or, you know, you don't even use the word moderate Christian or moderate Jew, but that's what you're doing. You're filtering. You're using your conscience, and you're saying, well, slavery is bad, I don't need to do that, even though the book kind of justifies it. Whereas someone that's like, you know, like a religious person can use those harmful things to justify their own evil, like what ISIS is doing, right? So when someone says, oh, you know, Islam is the basis of all morality, and without Islam, you guys have no morals. You atheists have no morals. You have no values. Like you eat babies. Like I'm like, seriously, everybody has morals, okay? The difference is that our guide for morals are not limited to what that book says. Our morals are more universal, right? We stick to a specific. We're not sticking to what one specific man in the desert said 1400 years ago, but we're looking for something universally, something good that we can extract for ourselves, and we can make a basis of morality, which is what secular humanism is.
Absolutely. So now let me ask you a question. It's a two-part question. Which sheikhs or imams or Muslim speakers did you look up to when you were a Muslim, and how do you view them now? So if you, I'm sure at the time you're, oh wow, mashallah, this guy, man, you got so much knowledge, this, that, and the other. But now when you watch their lectures or when you see them, how does that feel?
So it's a good question. I used to look up to Yasir Qadhi a lot, Noman Ali Khan. These are the guys, and you know, Bilal Phillips, and now I'm kind of, so Bilal Phillips, I used to think he was a very logical guy. I went to one of the conferences, Reviving the Islamic.
Let's say that's quite, you're more on the Salafi side, right?
Yeah, exactly. I was Salafi. So I wasn't Salafi the whole 15 years, but for the last few years, I was definitely Salafi. And I used to like Hamza Yusuf as well. You know, at the beginning, I really loved him. He was one of the guys that had a big impact on me when I became Muslim, Sunni Muslim. And eventually, I kind of stopped listening to him as much as I used to before, but I still used to respect him, unlike some of my other Salafi friends who used to say he's, you know, he's whatever.
Bid'ah.
He's misguided or whatever. Right?
I love bid'ah. That's it. Any problem, bid'ah.
Yeah, innovation, right? Yeah.
Love it.
So Bilal Phillips, I used to think, wow, this guy's so logical, and he had this this discussion he was giving about how he convinced someone that God exists or something. I'm like, wow, this guy's so logical. But now, as an atheist, when I go back and I re-listen to what he was saying, I notice his arguments are not that strong. Like the kind of like, some of them are really dumb arguments actually. And when you actually study, you know, if you never studied disbelief or like lack of belief or some of the explanations for, you know, understanding this world without God, or, you know, listen to some popular speakers like Matt Dillahunty, were able to explain the position of atheism from a good, solid, rational perspective. You listen to these things like, yeah, this guy's making sense, and you don't look into it further. You're like, yeah, this is cool. But then when you actually see there's good counters to these, now you're like, oh, like an example, like, anyways, I don't want to get into that, but there's a lot of logical proofs for God's existence, like the Kalam cosmological argument, like the ontological argument, which in history they never convinced like hardly anybody. Like nobody says I'm going to believe in God because of the Kalam cosmological argument. It's more like what philosophers are arguing back and forth, right? Now Bilal Phillips, like I kind of disappointed with him because obviously he supports and he proposes that homosexuals should be killed and it's immoral, and that's the thing, right? Like it's like, they're not hurting anybody. Why is it a problem to you what they do in private? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's their life. Like, it's their own choice, right? It's that's the thing, right? So that bothers me. And the worldview he wants to create, the world he wants to bring back, it's a terrible worldview. Salafism is bad for the world. It's
so okay, fair enough. That's the Salafi perspective. But what about someone like Hamza Yusuf? When you listen to him now, what's going through your mind?
So Hamza Yusuf, so let me tell you one more thing. So Yasir Qadhi, another Salafi guy, I actually have some hope for him because I've heard that he knows all of the ex-Muslim kind of points, you could say. He knows about, the criticism of the Quran, and he's actually, I feel like, he's actually abandoned the title Salafi now. He doesn't even he doesn't say Salafi, even though he still follows Ibn Taymiyyah and Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab and all that, but like he doesn't like the word Salafi. And studying in a Western university, I feel has had a very good impact on him. It's kind of changed his perspective, made him much more open-minded, and I kind of hope and one day that maybe he'll become agnostic as well. The thing is, I don't know if he would, because he has everything to lose. Like,
oh boy.
Yeah, to the point of like maybe getting death threats and
it would be a massive risk if you were to ever come out and say, oh, I'm agnostic, or I'm not sure about being Muslim anymore. The amount of following that he has, the amount of people that he has behind him who look to him as an imam, that would be a massive shot in the foot.
Yeah, and that's his job, right? That's his field. Like that's his life. He invested how many years? And that's the thing, when you spend so much of your time, investing in this religion, and then you have to leave it, it becomes so much harder because your whole life is under this. So sometimes you might just say, maybe I won't tell anyone. I'll just, I just want to make people better people anyway. So I'll emphasize the good things in it. And
Taqiyya. That is it's taqiyya the other way around.
No, I don't think it's taqiyya. I think what it is it's more like you block it out from your mind. It's cognitive dissonance. You're not willing to confront the fears that you have. And that's what I did for one full year. Like I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna block my mind. I'm not gonna think about this. And I think that's maybe what a lot of maybe even scholars do.
Maybe
they're only exposed to dogma. Okay, now Yasir Qadhi and the guys in the West, I think they have more exposure to these issues. But like a lot of Muslim, scholars, let's say, they're not exposed to like the points against the Quran. All they know when they go to the University of Medina, when they're studying in Morocco, you think they're studying about Alexander the Great and the similarities to Dhul Qarnayn's story. You think they're studying about like how the stories in the Quran are ripped off from Apocrypha, like the gospel, the infancy gospel of Thomas. Like, no, they don't study these things, right? So they don't know these points. A lot of them, they've never ever heard that the embryology in the Quran is like a ripoff of Galenic Greek 7th century science, right? Nobody knows. I mean, these guys don't know these things. So like they're not exposed, right? And Hamza Yusuf, like I have a little bit, like he's a little bit better than I'd say the Salafis in the sense of they want to abolish apostasy law. They want to get rid of killing apostates. They want to get rid of hudud in general. He says, I don't think hudud should come back. So like chopping off the hand, killing an adulterer. He's like, I don't think this should ever come back. Which is why like people like Hizb ut-Tahrir and the Salafis, they think he's misguided and he's deluded and this and that. But like it's better for the world. Like what he's proposing, and he says, democracy is good. As far as I know, that's last I heard. He's okay with democracy. Whereas Hizb ut-Tahrir is like, no, democracy is kufr. You can't vote for anybody, and you can't work with this kuffar, and it's very antagonistic, very harmful worldview. So I'm happy for that. But of course, packaged along in Islam is like killing homosexuals and like don't put your kids in public school, put them in Islamic school, isolate them from these bad ideas. And so unfortunately, it is kind of bad for the world overall, right? Like that's
I actually heard Hamza Yusuf say once in a lecture. I think the lecture was about the caliphate or Sharia or something like that, and he was saying, this is from his understanding, if the Sharia were ever implemented, whatever that means, but if it was implemented properly, it would look like Sweden, as in.
Who said? Did Hamza Yusuf say that?
Yeah. So I was like, hang on. So obviously, so I don't think he meant. So what? I'm guessing, like you said, he would not have hudud.
Yeah.
It would be somewhat peaceful, some sort of welfare state, some live and let live attitude.
You know what? You
Sorry,
made an amazing point that Graham Wood mentioned in his book, The Way of Strangers. I'm telling you, you have to listen to his book.
Okay.
He said he noticed the jihadists, they tended to project the world that like a kind of utopian version of their country onto the Islamic State. So the Japanese guy that joined ISIS, he's like talking about, yeah, there's one Japanese guy. He's back in Japan now, and he's under trial for like supporting ISIS, but like he said he didn't fight and he just went there to see it or something. Anyways, so he was projecting like, the government shouldn't be a nanny state and shouldn't get into your business and this and that. And he was projecting this onto the ideal Islamic State. And then you have people like Anjem Chaudhry and Abu Rumaisa, and how when they talked to Graham Wood, they were projecting like, yeah, it would be like, everyone would have money and there would be a welfare state and this and that. Like they were projecting British values, like, onto the Islamic State. And it's like, it's hilarious. Like all of us are looking for this.
It's absolutely amazing. I never even thought about that.
Yeah, it's like we're all projecting, we have this kind of utopian values. We don't realize just how influenced the culture that we're in has, like how much influence it had on us. And then we project that onto this idea. And that's what people do with Islam too, right? They kind of westernize Islam and they modernize it and they say, oh, no, Islam and this and Islam that, and they're actually projecting their own personal values onto it. They're not looking at it for what it is, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's pretty. No, I never thought about that. So speaking about environment and everything like that, do you ever feel like you're not entirely within the Muslim community and not entirely within the non-Muslim community? So you might have a foot in each camp, but you're not entirely in one of them. If that makes sense.
The challenge for me and the challenge for most ex-Muslims. Okay, so in my case, because I was Ismaili before, and
you were the wrong type of Muslim, brother.
so
you obviously, astaghfirullah, you were from the deviant sect, but mashallah, you saw the light. You came to Sunnism, so congratulations.
Thank you. So because I kind of came into the community, although my mom is Sunni Muslim, my dad was Ismaili. So someone's asking, can I talk about my parents' reaction? Yeah, I have that on my blog. I'll post a link right after. So what happened is my parents were very accepting, they're very liberal, and I'm very thankful for that. My mom wasn't very religious, and my dad was kind of religious Ismaili, but not that religious. And he was open-minded. He said, you can do whatever you want, you can follow whatever you want. So when I converted to Sunni, he was okay with that. And so what happened was I kind of jumped into the community and I became a very big part of the community. When you convert to Islam, you become an instant celebrity. Anytime you meet any friends, like you're going out, oh, meet Abdullah, brother Abdullah, he's such a good guy, he converted to Islam, and look at him, he's so religious, and look at me, I'm a sinful Muslim, I don't even go for Jummah all the time, but this brother, he wakes up for Fajr every day, we have to be like him, he's so amazing, and he's a great Muslim. So you become instant celebrity kind of, and it's very embarrassing. It's like everybody wants to use you to kind of like further the Islamic agenda. And so anyway, so what happens is I became a big part of the community, and then I got married. I brought my wife into the community as well. We have a lot of very strict religious friends. So now that I left Islam, I unfortunately kind of got kicked out of the community in a sense, right? And that's a very challenging part, especially for people that are born Sunni Muslim. It's very difficult because your entire family, your entire circle, everything around you is built on that. So, which is why a lot of people, they just don't want to come out openly and say, I'm atheist. There's a lot of atheists in the community they don't want to say it, right? And in my case, I was able to do it because, like my parents are accepting of me. They'll say, you can believe whatever you want. My mom told me you should believe in God. I mean, she thinks it's good, it's helpful to believe in God, and, he helps you when you need him or whatever. I personally don't think there's any God out there. I honestly, as time goes by, the more I study philosophy, the more I study even science, physics, I'm thinking more and more there's no God. But whatever the case is, whether there's a God or no God, I mean, that's everyone's personal choice. So unfortunately, you get the Muslim community is kind of intolerant, very intolerant. So I had a friend tell me that I'm not going to help you move. Like I was moving houses, like
Really?
Yeah, he's like, I'm not going to help you move because you have a blog against Islam. I'm like, that's my own personal belief. Yeah, because I have a blog. He's like, because you have a blog. Like, it's like, I'm not going to help you move because you have a blog. And so this is the kind of thing, like, I still go for Muslim events. Like, you know, there's a Muslim kind of gathering or whatever. I can still go there. Nobody's threatened me. Nobody's attacked me. People just act like kind of weird around you, like, hey, like, assalam, hey, hello, hey, buddy, hey, how's it going? Like, they start with the salams, and then they don't know if they should finish it, because then they realize, like, oh shit.
Oh my God.
Am I allowed to say salam alaikum to a kafir, a non-Muslim? Because apparently the Prophet, I don't know, he said, it's so stupid. Like, you have this one incident that happened in Prophet Muhammad's life, one incident that happened where some supposedly Jewish guy said, death be upon you. Assalamu alaikum, like assam, not assalam. So then, because of that, for the rest of humanity, forevermore, you can no longer say peace be upon you to a non-Muslim, because they might be saying death be upon you. So
wow,
instead, you have to
that's really good. I like that.
Because of that, forever and ever, for the rest of humanity, you can never say salam alaikum to non-Muslims. And some people, they don't care; they just ignore that as well, and they'll still say salams to me. But I stopped saying salams to people because it's very awkward. They don't know what to say. They're like,
really?
Wa alaikum. Hello. Exactly. So,
how you doing? Right? Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay,
so, yeah, I'm kind of out of the community now. I feel kind of awkward. Yeah, that's life. I have to make new friends. I have to make you know, the Muslims that are kind of cool, they're fine, but the other ones, they're like, you never know what they're thinking. So it's like, this guy hates me, hates my guts because I'm against this religion. So you feel kind of weird, right? Like, you know, it's like I'm the Masih Dajjal. I'm the Antichrist now in the community. So I'm like looking around, I go places, I'm like, this guy, I'm always scared someone's gonna recognize me in public. I'm like, you know, some guy's looking at you, right? And like, he looks kind of Muslim. Does he know who I am? It's happened like once or twice. Like, people actually came up to me and say, "Yeah, I know you." I'm like, "Oh shit, they know me." Yes, it's me. Like, yeah. You like my videos? Yeah, I like your videos. Okay. Good.
That's true. That actually leads me to my next question. Has anyone? Sorry, I can't.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Has anyone come up to you after you left Islam and said, "I really like your stuff you did," but as in when you were giving dawah?
Yeah.
And said, "Oh, brother, your talk or your blog or whatever was so amazing, man. It gave me so much insight into Islam and blah blah blah." And you're like, "Yeah, I'm a kafir."
Yeah. It happened. I'm working with a guy. Believe it or not. Like what a small world. And we were talking, and I told him, "Oh, I'm not Muslim anymore, whatever." He's a Muslim guy, and he's like, "Oh, I became religious like I think 15 years ago or something." And I'm like, "Yeah, you know, I used to have this website, Light Upon Light." He's like, "What? I came religious from your website." And I watched this video from this guy, Gary Miller, right? I'm like, Gary Miller, right. I don't even remember uploading that video. And he's like, "Yeah, you helped me become religious." I'm like, "Yeah, I don't believe in that stuff anymore." He's like, "No, but I do."
So like, okay. That's interesting. That was actually one of my questions. When you speak to someone who you help convert to Islam, and now you're on the other side of the fence, how does that work? They're like, "Hang on a minute, mate. You told me this stuff, and I now believe in it, and now you don't believe in it."
Yeah, it's kind of my fault, right? Like, well,
it is.
The thing is,
one thing, man. Stop changing your religion every 5 years, man. Bloody hell, causing so much grief.
So the thing that's changed in me now is like, I changed my religion once, but I had a kind of connection to it all along since my mom was Sunni. And, you know, Ismailis are still Muslim in a sense that they still believe in the Quran, they still believe in Prophet Muhammad, they still believe in the Day of Judgment, I think. They believe in most of the stuff that, you know, most Muslims believe in. So I already have that kind of connection, right? And then so when I read the Quran, I'm like, okay, well, this version of Islam makes more sense to me because it matches what God said, not what Aga Khan, the leader of Ismailis, said, which there's no connection. Like what he's saying and Quran saying is like, ooh, weird, right? Like, you pray to Aga Khan, you pray to him for guidance, but Quran says, don't pray to anyone else except Allah, or you will go to hell forever. It's like, whoa, big disconnect there between asking this man for guidance and for prayers and for blessings. Quran saying, you do that, you go to hell forever and ever. I'll go with the Quran. Thank you. So I wasn't very critical. I accepted it. I believed in it. But then now that I'm more critical, it's not going to happen again because I'm critical now. I'm thinking. I have tools. I have Occam's razor, and I have ways of, you know, digesting. I have my skepticism now. You know, once you put on your skeptic hat, you don't get fooled that easily anymore, right? So I just don't think it'll happen again. Like what I believe now. I mean, I'm open to dialogue. I'm open to say that maybe there's a God, maybe there's no God, maybe one of the religions is true, and I just haven't come across the evidence for it yet. And maybe I'll convert again. But honestly speaking, I feel confident. And the thing is, since I left Islam, in the 2 years that I left Islam, more and more things are clicking in a way that they've never clicked before. The cognitive dissonance you have to hold in your mind, like, you know, I don't believe in evolution. And then you see evidence for evolution. You see the fossil record. You see and it's like, Adam and Eve or evolution? What do I do? And you're like, Adam and Eve. I'm just going to believe in Adam and Eve because Allah is, you know, whatever. And then finally, the cognitive dissonance, it just becomes too heavy for you, which is what happened to me. The cognitive dissonance became too much and it just broke. And I said, okay, I can't believe in this anymore and now that I'm free of that, I have, you know, that's why they call it free thinking. You can think what you want to think. You choose the things that make sense to you and you believe in them based on evidence, not based on someone that, you know, trust says it, right? We do respect authority, but at the end of the day, it comes down to evidence, right? And what evidence do they bring to the table and what's the reality or the truth of it, right? So yeah, like, so in the 2 years since I've left Islam, things are making more sense than they've ever made in my entire life. Like everything is clicking in together. When I look at human nature, when I look at how humans behave, when I look at the history of animals, when I see the connections between animals and between us, and I look at morality and where morals come from, and everything that I've experienced in the last 2 years has been an amazing journey. And the fact that everything clicks together so nicely, it's just like, I don't see how I can get that from any religion. I don't think it's possible because religions are, at the end of the day, I think all religions are man-made, which is why I want to, you know, I'm going to keep researching. It doesn't mean that there's necessarily for sure no God. Maybe there's a God, maybe he's out there, whatever you call it, whatever you want to call God. I just do not think there's a personality out there that's like wanting to like torture humans for like rejecting him. I will smite you, you petty human. Psh, die. Like the guy in like X-Men, that giant robot guy. Oh, I will kill you, guy. Like, no, like that doesn't make sense. Right? And then this is the problem. You have people that want to give these logical proofs, like ontological argument, kalam, cosmological argument. They want to give these type of proofs for God. God is the greatest being that can exist. And yet, when you look at the Quran and the Bible, he's like a petty toddler that's like desperate for attention. Like,
he's jealous. He's completely jealous. He's just a control freak. He wants to control every aspect of your life, in your bedroom, in your house, with your spouse. Just like you can't leave you alone.
Yeah, and it's like,
I don't understand, and that's somehow merciful. But anyway,
and how does that make sense? Like, is that really God or is that Muhammad's invention? How is it that, you know, it's just like he's a man. He's like a super ego. And you know, one of my friends, good friends, his YouTube is Men of Malicious. He mentioned that God is like a super ego. It's like your ego like 10 times more. And we always look up to the super ego, kind of like a parent, like kind of like, you know, like the expression sky daddy, someone that's going to save you, someone that's going to take care of you, someone that's going to make everything right for you at the end of the day. But I mean, it's just a visual thinking. I don't believe anyone's out there, right?
So this comes back to how was the conversation with the guy who you helped convert to Islam, and now you're on the other side of the fence?
Yeah.
How did that? I don't understand. That must have been interesting.
Yeah. So we had a discussion, went for lunch, and I told him, you know, why, you know, I don't like to say. I used to tell people about these are the issues I found in the Quran, because the thing is, a lot of people misunderstand when I say that, you know, I found scientific issues in the Quran. It's not, you know, people used to say there's scientific miracles in the Quran. Now people are getting smarter, like the apologists or the Dawah guys. They're not saying this as often anymore. And even some of them are going out and saying there's no scientific miracles in the Quran. Like Hamza Swetis is saying there's no.
I saw that. You see,
yeah.
He's caught on and he's realized actually we can't use this as a proof.
It's a smart move.
Instead of getting caught up in it, let's just reject it outright. So they've changed their tactics.
It's a good move, because the problem is when you look at the scientific points in the Quran, they're problematic, right? So we've gone from saying that to saying there's no scientific miracles in the Quran. But here's the problem. When people say, you know, the Quran is not a science book, the Quran is not here to teach you science, I agree with you. The Quran is not a science book. It's poetry. Like when it says, you know, when you were made as a clot of blood and then flesh and then a hanging clot and this and that, nobody said, oh, look, the Quran is describing embryology. I'm going to become Muslim now, like, you know, 1400 years ago. Now the people just made that up now to make people convert. But it's not accurate, right? It's not realistic. The bones don't come before the flesh. They both come at the same time. So it's just poetry. It's just like reflect on nature, reflect on life, and worship God, right? Like it's kind of like the watchmaker argument that Muhammad was making. He was saying, oh, everything is so amazing, and you know, the baby, the miracle of birth is so amazing, and how did this happen? We don't really understand it. So therefore God did it, and you should worship this God, who's my God, is Allah, right? And he wants me to be in charge, so you should worship him. So this is kind of like the thinking that Muhammad was proposing. But you know, for me, science doesn't tell us. This is an amazing quote I got from Lawrence Krauss. Science doesn't tell us the way the world is. It tells us the way the world is not. Meaning, the model we have, the Newtonian model of physics, it's great, but when you go to the quantum scale, we have a new model. We have the quantum mechanics, right? Which is completely different at small scales. But at a larger scale, you know, quantum physics doesn't apply. I mean, Newtonian physics applies. So it's a model. It tells us the world the way the world is not, but it's not 100% accurate in the sense that we can improve it.
Almost like by process of elimination, we're finding out what it is.
Exactly, and we can keep improving that model. Yeah. But science tells us what the world is not. So when the Quran says, you know, we're the ones holding up the heaven, you know, we hold up the sky without any pillar, you're like, when the Quran says, you know, the sun and the moon, they go in orbit, and you think about what people back then would have thought about. They would have thought about the sun and the moon going around the earth, right? So science can show you what's not true. We know that the heliocentric model is false. We know that the earth is not the center of the universe or the galaxy or anything. We know it's actually going around the sun, right? So because we've done that by the same process, in my opinion, science completely demolishes the Quran. The science shows that the Adam and Eve theory is completely incorrect because genetically, all of us don't have a common mom and dad. We do not. So now Muslims will say, well, Adam and Eve mated with some weird stuff like that, or there was other humans along at the time of Adam and Eve or something like that. Whereas the Muslim apologists will start by saying Adam and Eve had children and they had twins, and then each one of the twins.
I've heard that story before.
That's one?
Why is that a better explanation? I don't understand. That's a probably worse explanation. I don't understand.
Yeah, so the thing is, it's a better explanation if you don't have any clue about evolution, which we only figured out 150 years ago. It's quite a modern thing. So before that, people had no damn clue where humans came from. So it makes sense that there was a first mom and dad, right? Because all of us have a mom and dad. So there must have been a first mom and dad, and they had babies, and then they had babies, and that's how we came, right? How else could it have happened? Nobody would have ever thought that by the process of evolution, from a single cell organism, it became all of the life that we know as it is today. Even though all life as we know it today has the same DNA, right? Like, I mean, even a banana and humans have 60% of the same DNA according to one calculation. So we have that, like it's there. So Muslims that are not that dogmatic, they'll say that, yeah, I believe God did this. And I'm totally cool with saying that. But then you can't really believe in Adam and Eve, because Adam and Eve is just a myth. It's just a story. And like I said, the less dogmatic Muslims are willing to say that Adam and Eve is just a story with some moral lessons, some teachings for us or whatever. You don't have to take it literally. And that's a better approach, because it matches like the world that we see, right? We can look at your DNA, we can look at my DNA, and we can go back and see how far back we had a common ancestor. And all of humans, some of them have Neanderthal, a little bit of Neanderthal in them. And we actually understand this to a level that nobody has ever understood this before. And that's why the Quran, in my opinion, it cannot continue, and it's not going to continue having the same, you know, grip on humanity that it did before, because people like me would truly believe it's a word of God, and then start to see the holes in it, will eventually leave it, right? People like yourself that are more critical thinkers. But I think the problem is the vast majority of humans are not critical thinkers, right? They just want to accept, they just want to be comfortable in the thinking. And that's unfortunately what the situation is, right? We want to shake them and wake them up, but people just want to kind of, and the fear of hell is such a strong fear, right? Like, you know what I mean? A lot of people have a hard time overcoming that.
Yeah, I agree. I think before they put the brakes on, before they even engage the conversation, or even want to even what's the word I'm trying to entertain the thought that they could be wrong, because the risk is too much. So you know what? I'd rather not go down this rabbit hole, because I don't know what I will come out on the other side. And if I'm wrong and I leave, then hell, man, it's not a nice place to be.
Exactly. So yeah, that's the thing, right? A lot of people are scared to kind of challenge their own beliefs. and they're scared, like you said, like what's going to happen if I start thinking this way. So they kind of just
I've spoken to some people and I've asked them, do you seriously believe in all of this? And honestly, they said, you know what, I don't even want to ask myself that question, because the more I will find out, I'm scared I'm going to believe less. And I don't want to be in that position where I now have to make a decision. Otherwise, this cognitive dissonance, whatever, I don't want to make this decision where I leave, and that's going to cause me a lot of trauma and my family a lot of trauma. So you know what? I'll leave it as it is, and whatever. I'm not gonna touch it. I'm not gonna touch it.
So yeah, exactly. So guys, we're gonna let you guys, if you want to ask any questions now, just post them in, and I'll copy them to the video with Waleed. So whoever's just joining, we're just about to finish soon. I'm speaking with Waleed of Veedu Vidz. I'm gonna post the link as well. Please follow his channel. He is a really funny guy, and I'm sure we're gonna have more videos we do together in the future as well. If you have any questions you want to ask one of us or both of us, we can kind of go through that. And I want to post his link to Veedu Vidz. Please follow him on YouTube and Twitter as well.
Yep, Twitter and Facebook, yeah.
Okay, so send me those. I'm just going to get the links from here. I'm going to post them. And I'm just going to go to the comments here and see what people said. Okay, people are having a little conversation by themselves here. Thanks for all the positive feedback, guys. Yeah, appreciate the follows and hope to keep making good videos, and keep sharing and try to get people to be more rational. Share these videos, share good content among others, and try to connect with the larger crowd, right? We don't want to be speaking just amongst ourselves. We really want to be reaching others that are still still believers in Islam, or still believers in any other religion. Okay, I got the link for Veedu's channel. I just posted it, Veedu Vidz. Please subscribe. Thank you very much. And yeah, your Zakir Naik impression is amazing. Do you have any plans for next video? I know you did one on blasphemy, because I mean, that was a terrible thing that happened to Mashal Khan. And
oh man, that really annoyed me. Honestly, that really annoyed me.
Yeah, that was more than
that was something which like I do a lot of videos, man. I make a lot of jokes and a lot of ha he he, oh Zakir Naik, Dawa man, this guy, that guy. But that was probably the one video that I probably made sort of quite angry. All the other videos, I'm sort of going in thinking, oh, I'm gonna have a lot of fun. I'm just gonna take the that video. I wasn't like that, because I was like, wow, man, what was this guy's crime?
Yeah.
What the hell did he do? And the way he was treated, the way he was treated like some sort of rabid dog. Everyone's beating him up. Even after he's died, people are crushing his skull, beating the crap out of him. And I was like, wow, you talk about Islamophobia, that is Islamophobia. People, oh, Islamophobia is what? Some guy saying, oh, you're a Muslim, go back to your country.
Yeah.
Islamophobia is when a Muslim can't even express himself freely in his own country. And the result is that he's accused of apostasy, and he is dragged out of his room and beaten by his students. University students are probably some of the most liberal people, most liberal and hairy-fairy, hippy-dippy kind of people on the planet. Yeah. And he was killed by he wasn't killed by a gang of thugs who are associated with some religious party or political party. He was killed by university students. Let that sink in for a second.
Yeah.
And that is absolutely insane. So I made that video, and I was like, you know what, guys, if you're going to defend blasphemy so much, this is what it looks like. When I'm not saying Islam says go and kill someone on a vigilante style. I'm not saying that. I know. Even in Pakistan, on the news channels, people were saying that what happened was wrong, but they didn't actually address the issue of blasphemy itself. They said, oh, you know what? If he had committed blasphemy, then he should have been brought in front of a judge. So there should have been some trial, evidence, back and forth. But so hang on. So the only problem you see in this whole thing is the fact that he was killed vigilante style. Other than that, blasphemy is completely fine. And now you see there's a crackdown on Facebook, especially with Pakistan. I don't know why Pakistanis love doing this kind of stuff. With blasphemous comments. They've asked Facebook to sort of help them out with it, and that is absolutely insane. This is why such.
This is why I wish I could speak Urdu. I don't speak any other languages, unfortunately. I wish And I hope more Pakistanis in Canada or whatever, and not in Pakistan, let's say. You know, the problem is they sometimes want to go back home, and then there's a risk, you know, to them, especially like I've heard of people that are, you know, banned from going back to the country, or they're scared to go back to the country because they've said things against Islam, or they've, you know, kind of, sometimes it's not even against Islam. Sometimes you can say, oh, I'm against
he was just asking questions. I think it was about the story of Adam and Eve or something like that. And apparently, well, man, you can't question that, man. That's just like, you know, it's too much. And next thing you know, my man, it really is sad. It really is sad. He wasn't even saying, I'm an atheist, Muslims are stupid. No. He was asking normal questions, the kind of questions that, you know, is it really true that this happened? Or is it, I'm not really sure about that.
Yeah, I think
such a low tolerance.
Yeah, exactly. I have seen, I was sent some messages, private messages, where some people showed me that he did admit he was atheist, and he was kind of, you know, saying some things like he didn't believe it was. He said something, this is nonsense, that's nonsense. But the problem is, the culture there has become so like heated that not heated, but like you have to walk on eggshells. You don't even have to, you know, insult the prophet. All someone has to do is say you did that, and it's like,
of course. Even if you could say this guy, you know, what, said this, even if there's no proof or no evidence, you just gotta say it, and people are in such a frenzy. What? You said this? That's it. And it's such an explosive sort of subject. People are scared of. I think even if you were to say, as a lawyer, I heard, I don't know if it's true or not. Even if you were to say what he said in court, you might be accused of blasphemy as well. So even if I say this person said so and so in court, because I've said it now, that's just as bad.
It's crazy. Yeah. So I think this is why, you know, what we're doing, this activism, is so important. And this is why I have to continue to speak out, because, you know, people say you're so brave. I don't think I'm so brave. Honestly, I don't. My situation is different. Like, my family is accepting, you know, my wife didn't leave me, and my parents are liberal. My dad passed away, but, you know, he was okay with it when I told him. And so I have one brother, younger brother, who was very religious, and, you know, he's very upset about what I did because he thinks I'm going to go to hell, and obviously misguiding other people. But for the most part, I don't lose anything. You know, it's a little bit of a personal risk to me, and obviously there's going to be people that have a vendetta that might want to hurt me. But other than that, I'm safe, right? And I can do this. And this is why I feel like I must do this. I have to do this. I need to do this, because unfortunately, religion comes with good and bad. And the bad is really, really bad. Like, you know, when we see something like the hanged Nizami hashtag that was going on in Pakistan, like, we honestly, Pakistanis, please, you know, if you can somehow, you know, without risking your own life, especially not if you're in Pakistan, please just be quiet if you're in Pakistan. I have to say, I don't want anyone to die. This job is for people outside of Pakistan who are still connected to other Pakistanis. Try to just, you know, put a little bit of skepticism in people's minds. Let them think about these things, at least to the point of not killing someone just for questioning. Like, make the, you know, the culture of questioning needs to come back. You know, the culture of tolerance. Like, if you can get at least to that point, I think we'll be much better off. So maybe that's a good point to end on, you know, asking people to be more active. Is there anything else you want to add? Can you just tell us your YouTube channel and Twitter, whatever else you want to share?
Yeah, sure. So if you want to follow me, I've got some more videos lined up in a few weeks' time. Veedu Vidz, that's Veedu Vidz. Veedu Vidz. You find me on Facebook, Twitter, on YouTube. Subscribe, share, like, whatever it is. And I'm obviously coming at this from an angle of comedy and satire. So instead of doing what you do, which is great, which is, you know, you break it down rationally, for me, I would have a bit more sort of fun and try and sort of make people laugh in the process.
That's fantastic. I mean, we need all these different approaches. My last video was kind of funny. I don't know if you saw it. I hope to do, we should do a video together, like both of us talking to each other, like as if we're in the same room or something at some point. I think that has a best, you know, being funny has a way of getting to people's defenses and allowing them to think about things. So that's fantastic. Thanks for the discussion. That was amazing. We have 61 people online right now. I don't know how many.
Sorry, Do you have any questions? I feel bad. We've kind of left them out. Any questions before we quick fire questions? Quick fire. Let's do a quick fire round.
Can you see them or no?
I can't see any. Sorry, I can't see any of the questions.
Okay, hold on. Let me post a link for you. If you click there, check and see if you can see the discussion.
Okay, I'll have to turn this on mute.
I don't see any questions yet.
No. Any comments or anything like that?
What's your opinion about Lindu Saraswati? So I have to get going in the next 5 minutes, guys.
Okay, cool.
Let's do a couple of questions. You want to talk about Lindu Saraswati?
I'd rather not. Honestly, I'd rather not, because I just can't. Because you're gonna open up a can of worms, and you haven't got time for it. So the best answer is no answer, and you know exactly what I mean. I ain't got time for that.
When's your next video coming?
Next video should be within 2 weeks' time. I'm thinking of doing something a bit different. Someone who I haven't done before, but he's from the UK, and he's not Muslim, so that should give you something to think about.
Yeah, someone's asking what's my view about some random book I never heard of. I don't know, and saying the old Quran doesn't match today's Quran. The evidence shows that the oldest Quran that was found in Birmingham actually matches the Quran that we have. So if there's any discrepancies in the Quran, they would be from before Uthman's time, when he burnt all of them. So my belief is that, I could be wrong, I didn't study the counter academic position on this, but my understanding is the Quran that we have today is the same one that Uthman had, and all the other ones were burned. Whether that Quran that Uthman had is the same one that Muhammad had, I don't know. All bets are off. He destroyed all the evidence, so we don't know. Whatever we have today, either you trust the companions that they put it together properly, or you don't. I personally think there's some discrepancies, but it's a big topic and it's very academic. I prefer not to get into it. What do I think of Majid Nawaz? Do you want to say anything?
I actually like Majid Nawaz. I would say that a few years ago, I probably didn't like him a lot, but I've come around to his way of thinking, and I must say I commend him on his effort. I think he's someone who, in Britain anyway, the experiences that I've had with people is that people love to hate him because he calls out the bigotry within the communities and defensive when it comes to, there's so many problems in Muslim communities. That's not to say all Muslims are bad or they should be behind bars, but just call bigotry out when you see it. And he's someone who does that. And I think he gets a lot of a lot of stick from Muslims.
I kind of like him too. I think that he has a very difficult job, which is to kind of try to reform Islam based on a very rigid structure. The religion is very rigid. It calls itself perfect. And so I think he has a kind of uphill battle trying to reform Islam. Personally, my approach is just throw it out and just take the good parts for yourself. You don't have to call yourself Muslim or whatever. But I mean, I mean, he's like a partner in crime, you could say, if you want to say that. Like, whatever he's doing, he's trying to make people, more open-minded, more tolerant. He wants to kind of reform the bad parts of Islam, which, there's other people that are trying to reform Islam, like Hamza Yusuf, but they won't call it that. Like, they'll say, oh, let's get rid of apostasy law. Well, how can we get rid of what Prophet Muhammad came with? Well, it's because he had, specific context, and, in those days, Islam and the state were combined, and, whatever. They come up with all sorts of nonsense to say that, it's not part of the religion anymore and whatever. But they can't say I'm reforming Islam, because people will be like, get out, Islam's perfect. Just get out. So
of course,
here's an uphill battle. I don't know how he's doing.
You can't say that, because then you have to admit there's something wrong with it, and you can't do that. You can't do that. Exactly.
Okay, so I think because I gotta go, we'll just end it here.
Sure.
And thanks for watching, guys. And like I said, please make sure you follow Veedu as well. He's gonna upload maybe this video on his channel as well after, and we'll try to do another one in the future.
Thank you, guys, and thank you, Abdullah, so much. I really enjoyed this conversation. Hopefully, it's the first in many. And we'll have, guys, just post I know we didn't get around to all of your questions. Put the questions in the comment section below, and hopefully we can address them later on when we make another video.
Awesome.
So, well done, guys, and thank you, Abdullah. Really enjoyed it. Thank you so much. Hope you have a great day.
You too.
Let's make this happen again.
Okay. Take care.
Take care. See you.
Bye.
Bye. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.